I'm from St. Louis. They drafted me 4 times. My parents talked me into going into the Army. I did the whole conscientious objector thing. I got in the Army and I told them I'm a conscientious objector, and they laughed. At that point, I was 5'10" and weighed 111 pounds. And I had a 50-pound pack on my back. You know the pack. And I would run with it as far as I could, and then I would fall down. And they just started beating me with rifle rods, cleaning rods, till you got back up and started running again. And the boots never fit. My feet were always bloody. After almost finishing basic, we had a 20-hour kill training day. And that just, I'm a hippie. It was just, yeah. I had nightmares for years after that. I got a friend to come down and visit me. I got in the trunk of his brand new Cougar. They didn't stop him, but I was under the spare in the back. And I disappeared. And the FBI was all over me. Every place I lived in, you had to have a way out of. And there's very few alleys in San Francisco. I had couches that I had gutted and could get in that were laying in backyards. And I would get so stoned and so paranoid, I would hide under my mattress. They chased us out of San Francisco. We lost them pretty quick.
Okay.
But we drove to the border like they were chasing. I was 26, and that was pretty old for a deserter or draft dodger, right? Most of them were in their late teens, early 20s. So we got across the border. I came to Canada March 29th, 69. I go to Vancouver Island, and it's half the hippies I met were American.
Yeah.
Either deserters or draft dodgers,
Right.
or somehow got out of it but just didn't want to be in a country that was fighting a war that they didn't believe in. I immediately got in touch with the underground, the people that took American deserters and draft dodgers, particularly deserters, because they were the ones that were really hot. And they found us a place to stay, people to stay with, and if we didn't have much money, they'd help out with that a bit. They said, here's what you do. Immediately, you send, I had a 3-day permit. Okay. You send it back to San Francisco and say, I couldn't find this in my luggage when I crossed the border. And they didn't have computers and all that shit at that time, so, this usually, and it did in my case, took care of it. They thought that I had come back into the States. I was 8 years before I could go back. My dad died, and the FBI were at his funeral. Jimmy Carter let all the draft dodgers above the board, and all the deserters he let come back under the board. They said that if I, did some application, that I could upgrade my undesirable discharge to a general discharge. And I said, I earned that undesirable discharge. He said, you realize you can't ever get a good job in the States? And I said, I don't want to live in the States. I got welcomed back in 77. We went to the airport, and American Customs, I showed them these papers that they had sent me. It was a woman customs person, and she said, welcome back to the States. And I went, wow. Because I thought I wasn't going to be treated very well. Yeah. And there were a few people down in Missouri that were friends of the family and stuff that weren't real pleased with the whole situation. But nobody said anything, and a bunch of people said, good for you. To really fight a war, you got to have boots on the ground, and if the boots won't go, if everybody fought a war like I fought a war, there wouldn't be wars.